Today is my day. Today we're going to take a look at the one instance I think I hold the most closely to my heart in my entire educational career. And it's because the failures that I experienced, the growth that I made, and the lives that I impacted. Today, we got the story of Leon and the story of my failures.
Walk in, chest great, we don't play. Staff talk sharp like a quiz on a Monday. Whiteboard wars, yeah, we grade all day. If you can't take that heat, stay out the hallway. Hey, this is the staff room. Say it loud, say it loud. The staff room.
Let's get into it.
All right, welcome back to the staff room, everybody. I'm Dr. Matos. I appreciate you all coming out and supporting the channel. Please continue to do so. Pardon the interruption, team. Currently, only 16% of those viewing my videos are subscribed to the channel. We are currently on a journey to 100 subscribers. At that time, we'll have a subscriber celebration live stream where you can interact with me, watch some funny content, and enjoy each other as a community. I'm excited to hear what you all think about the channel and how we can grow as a community. So please like and subscribe, and I'll see you when we hit 100. Today, we have a teacher's tale of my life, and I've been waiting to tell it for quite some time. It's a story about my own failure and the success that came out of it. This is a story about Leon and myself as a first-year general education teacher. Now, when I first started my career, I did some work in another state, and then I had, relocated to a different state. And I had no idea what I was getting myself into. None. I started at a school that was a Title I school, and it was in a rough place that I knew nothing about, which turned out to be one of the rougher neighborhoods probably on the East Coast. I started in an ESC or EBD cluster unit as a para, and then I moved into actual teaching position soon after. And I was pretty successful. I was there. It was a struggling unit that had a lot of restraints. These were kids that were highly emotional. And when I took the unit over as the chair, I put in some new systems, and we were fairly successful at reducing those restraints. In fact, we became one of the lowest restraint units in the district, to the point where district professionals were visiting us to see what programs we had put in place. So I was very proud of this. And because of this, I gained some recognition across the campus and throughout the district. But my dream was always to become an administrator, because I wanted to create classrooms, or not classrooms, but schools that had this approach and that were just as successful. So that's kind of what I set out to do. But the only way in my eyes I felt I could do that is by getting out of the unit and into a gen ed situation. And I was shocked by the difference that transition made. So when I transferred out of that unit, I had a mentor. He was a great leader. He was a superintendent from Oregon who came down to our school and took our school and raised it the next grade level or two. And I worked closely with him. We spent some time outside of work together, training and stuff. I was doing triathlons back then, and he taught me a lot. When I came out of the unit, he unfortunately had to leave and relocated back to Oregon. Now, at that time, I was under the understanding that I was going to be able to transfer all of my skills back into this new classroom, and I was sadly mistaken. I also was under the interpretation or the understanding that I was going to have supportive leadership, and I also was sadly mistaken. Now, I got to my classroom, and the first thing that leadership did, and for those of you who work in schools or have taught, especially when it comes to behavior, if you're a man and you're good at behavior, what are they going to do? They're shoving all of the behavior kids in your class, and that's exactly what they did. Shoved them all in my class. But I did not have the skills to take on such a feat. I didn't know what I was getting myself into, and I was not prepared. And that's my own fault, because I expected more support, and I didn't know any better. I was still new. I was only in the unit 3 years. It was just new. So I got a room full of these kids, and I'm teaching, and I'm doing everything that I think I'm supposed to be doing. And the kids just aren't moving. And they not only filled my class with all of these behavior kids, I have the new unit teacher who filled my position putting her kids into my classroom, which I'm pretty sure is got to be against the rule at some point. I'm not sure which one off the top of my head. I'm sure I can figure it out. And I have people coming in my room and people I didn't even the lesson planning, I was just completely over my head. It was just ridiculous. I had parents coming in, they're blaming me for kids not learning, or they're blaming me for kids getting in trouble. And I'm just sitting here like, what? I have the district people coming in, they're looking at scores, and I'm sitting here like, what do you mean scores? I'm just trying to get them to behave. So needless to say, I got my behind whooped that year, and my scores were horrible. And I carried this with me. But during that time, I was able to meet some of the most amazing kids that I've ever met in my entire career. And even though I wasn't the best teacher they've ever experienced at that time, these kids were awesome. One of them being Leon. So when I first got Leon was he was low. He had this thing about him where he could just brighten up a room though. He had a twin sister, same. And I did what I could to try to instruct him on how to be better, but I just wasn't as good as I thought I was, and I just did him a disservice, I thought. So the only thing I could do was try to inspire him in other ways. And one thing that I've always said is that hard work is going to beat out anything. It's going to beat out anything. And I pushed it into those kids because I felt like it wasn't me. I felt like they were just not doing their part. Yeah, they weren't doing their part because they didn't know how to do it. But Leon took that and ran with it. And every day he would be in my room early. He would be in my room late. He even joined my mentoring group where I only had 4 or 5 kids there, but he was there every single day, busted his butt. And whenever he got a bad grade and he just looked at me, I just had nothing to give him. I just said, keep working hard because I didn't know what to do. I failed him, or so I thought. But Leon took himself at the end of the year and he moved himself. I'm not taking credit for that because he busted his behind and getting himself up to speed, and he did great. As good as he could have done at that time. He pushed himself to read better. This was a 4th grade class. He pushed himself to read better. He pushed himself to be a better person, and he played sports. There was another gentleman that worked with me at this school, and we used to have like these little football games with a bunch of kids. Some of the kids are mentoring kids. He played football. Now I play baseball and basketball. I don't really know much about football, but he did bring it to my attention one day when Leon intercepted a pass which I was throwing. Now I was a pitcher. I know how to throw. Like my throws are spot on. Leon picked that thing off like he was a pro. And the gentleman, he turned to me, he said, "Hey, Matos, did you see that?" I don't know what he was talking about. I said, "No, what?" He goes, "That kid has skill. I don't know if you caught it, but whenever this is what he said, he goes, he turned around, and when he caught that ball, he showed the front two, see, put it here. He showed his hands like this." I said, "I don't know what that means." He goes, "Anytime somebody naturally turns around to intercept the ball and dives and has both the palms of their hand facing you, he's a natural, and they can make it someplace with the right coaching." And I was like, okay. I'm like, these kids are all good. All right. School year goes past. My kids do terrible. Everybody's talking. Nobody's talking to me. I had a coach who was a great coach, but I don't know if she liked me or what, like had a crush on me or what, but she came in her room. She's like, "Oh, you're doing great." Everybody, "Oh, you're doing great." And at the end of the year, I wasn't doing so great. And the new principal was a little odd because I think she came in there with a point to prove because they voted her out. They didn't want her. The school did not want her. They chose this other guy initially, and then we got her. So I just think she had something. I don't know. I don't want to say against me. I just think she was, on the defense because she did help. She did try to like show me some things the next year because she knew I was tracked to be leadership. But she didn't know what type of man I was. And I was the same type of man that I taught Leon to be. So I knew leaving there, I was going to become a completely different teacher. And the next year, I was going to destroy some things. So, Leon went up to 5th grade. He got another teacher. I got called in. And of course, when you don't do well, they want to move you. So they wanted to move me to 2nd grade. Me being the person that I am, I looked at her in the eye and said, all right, I'm just going to move on because you don't know who I am. When I come back next year, I'm going to be a completely different teacher. Well, she thought I was kidding. So I was offered a better position in leadership at another school. And I took that position. So Leon and I haven't had any real contact following that year. And it was kind of sad because I spent a lot of time with him because he was always in my room. But this was my failure. And I thought I failed everybody. I thought I failed the kids. I thought I failed my school. I was embarrassed. So I spent the entire summer perfecting my craft. And the next year I had gotten another role and I actually bumped into that principal at a hiring event. And she just kind of looked at me like, what is going on? And I said, yeah, this is me. I told you I was going to be a different person. That year at my school, I came in and I was the head of the ELA department, and the school was at a 17% proficiency, which was unheard of. I had those teachers and they were willing to collaborate. They just wanted to be better, to keep people out of their rooms and to feel better about themselves. And that's what they were. We ended up being the 2nd highest in the cadre that year after we put all of our plans in place. And I proudly made sure I boasted that from a 17% all the way up to a 71% in 1 year. In 1 year, I came in, we put in new writing, we put in new reading expectations and protocols. We put in new collaborative protocols. We killed it. And I knew that I was going to do that. Now, this is where the story gets fun, because Leon continues to get older. He continues to move on. I have not talked to him in a very long time, but every now and then I would remember him. And I had continued to progress in my profession to the point where somebody from my old school who was mad that I left at a principal's meeting decided to bring my name up. Oh, you have this person. Yeah. Oh, you need to watch him. And that's what they do. And teachers, we need to stop doing that. This is crazy. You need to stop bothering with other people and worry about yourself. Because they said to my principal in front of a whole room of people, oh, you need to watch him. Because when he left us, his kids boop and just put all my business on the table. Mind you, they didn't know. Because we're in the same cadre, they did not know, what was going on or what I was doing. They just knew I was at this school. And everybody just looked at this person, and I think I know who it is. She would never admit it. And just looked at her like she was crazy. And my cadre director said, Mr. Matos? Yeah. My principal said, that's a lie. I don't even know why you would say that. Because I sit in his class just to get away. That's how good he is. And they looked at this lady, looked at her in disbelief. And then my cadre director out of left field says, I don't really appreciate you talking about people like that, especially people who you let go because they were uncomfortable with you as a leader, and then proceeded to pull my new data up onto a screen for the whole entire cadre of coaches, principals, assistant principals to look at. And then told them very bluntly, he also came to the school and got the entire school's scores to move up over 60%. And that's part of my motivation, because bad news travels way faster than good news, especially in this educational setting. And my principal came back, my assistant principal, they came back and told me about this, and I loved every second of it because I knew that was happening. And I told them nobody's responsible for my growth except for me. You're not going to move me just so somebody else can teach me. I don't want to learn how to teach like anybody else. I'm going to go and I'm going to do the research and I'm going to be great. And I hope that you guys share this video because I need this to get to that person because she knows who she is. That was my family at that school, and I had to leave it because you were not going to do right by me, and I need to do right by myself. And if one thing I'm always going to do, it's bet on myself. And that year, I specifically made it a point to make you look dumb. And so that's what I did. And I continue to do it this day. Because to this day, I have people from that school that call me on a regular basis for advice on how to run systems in their school. Now, that's my failure and how I turned my failure into the biggest lesson of my life. But let me tell you about Leon. Well, as I moved through my career, Leon got a little bit older, and Leon was in 11th grade. And I got a random Instagram message. I was not expecting it, but I kind of took a turn. And I knew who it was because I used to cut all of the boys' hair in my class because their parents couldn't afford it. I was a barber, so I would just cut all their hair, and I knew who it was. So I seen it and I said, "Oh wow!" And I opened it up, and this is what I was greeted with. He says, "What's up, Mr. Matos? This Leon. You probably don't even remember me." So in the back of my mind, I'm like, what do you mean I don't remember you? So I was super excited to hear from him. And I say to him, Leon, now mind you, I like to meet kids where they are. And back then I was young. So I just talked to them the way they talk. You know, when it was professional time, I was professional. So I said, Leon, what's up, bro? Heard you made a commitment. Congrats, my bro. I knew he was a football player, and I just happened to see in passing that he had committed to a college, but it wasn't, I think it was just like one of those posts that they make, like kids make, because he was still in high school. I said, you got a work ethic that's on a whole nother level than most people. Excuse me. I'm trying to step out to some games this year. Let me know when you're playing and I'll 100% pull up. Now, this is also after I was sick. I put on a bunch of weight, and let me just be honest with everybody, because I'm never really honest about this. I was just embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to go out because I knew a lot of people, and when they see me like this, it's different, and they ask questions, or they see, I'm not even like at my worst, but at this time I was in rough shape. My eyes were not functioning. I had to wear an eye patch. I was like 340 pounds. I don't know. It just was a conversation I didn't want to have. So I told him, I said, yeah, you know, I'll come see you, you know, play. So I figured he was still a senior. So he responds to me, and this is the response that has changed the way I see education. He says, "What's up, Mr. Matos? I didn't commit to college yet. I am very soon." He says, "I just made a big transfer to a big school." Yes, sir. Now, the school that he transferred to is a school that I've been watching. It's actually an academy where the football team just won the national championship and had just committed a bunch of people to very big schools. And one of those is now the #1 player in college football. He'll probably be the Heisman Trophy this year. If not this, then next. So I was super excited when I heard it, and he told me, he says, yes, sir. All I ever had was great work ethic. It all started in your classroom back in 4th grade. That hit me different because I put in so much work to be terrible that year, but I was able to reach at least one kid. And because I pitched this work ethic thing to him, I was just like, man, I don't know what else to do. This is all I could teach him because I'm such a bad teacher at this point. This is all I got. and he took it and he ran with it. But he held on to that work ethic. He got into the #1 high school football program in the country. #1. And this was a kid who could barely read when I met him, but he worked his butt off. And this hit me different that day. I'm not gonna lie. I did get a little emotional because I was not healthy and things were tough. And sometimes this is what God does. He just gives you, things to keep you on the right track. So he goes on to tell me about where where they're playing, and I go on to tell him that I'm gonna make it, and that I'm proud of him. And he, calls me because I told him, I said, listen, if you need anything, give me a call, whatever. I gave him my number. If he needs like a letter of recommendation, whatever, which I knew he was going, but he called me. He said, and he was very excited. He's narrowing down where he's going to go to college at. But now I'm just thinking to myself, man, this is a kid that comes from a neighborhood where it's very hard to get out of. And no matter what was around him, he kept working his butt off, and he's going to make a commitment to a college. So it turns out he commits to Western Kentucky to play football. He attributes a lot of that to me, and I don't deserve all of it. But I attribute my success as an educator to him, because I now know, and I now teach by the understanding that you can reach kids in all situations, even when they're not performing data wise at that time. You still got to do your job because they are going to get it later. And that's real education. Inspiration is far more powerful. And he did what he wanted to do, and he got where he wanted to go. And now I hope to see him put the NFL logo on the side of his helmet, because that's what he deserves. I didn't get to go out to any of his games because, again, I was just dealing with my own inner demons, but I hope he gets to see this at some point, because he has to know that he did this. I may have told him what to do, but that's just because I was a terrible teacher at that time. And if it wasn't for his class, I would have never gotten to be such a great teacher as I was in the past, and such a great leader as I feel that I am currently. And if you're an educator, you need to look at your students for the same inspiration that they look to you for, because that's what life is about. It's reciprocal. Don't be too good to be inspired by somebody else. And make sure that every interaction you have with each kid is an interaction that you are confident about, and that is going to last for a lifetime. Appreciate you listening to this Teacher Tale, Dr. Matos, and appreciate you coming and visiting the staff room.
Walk in, chair straight, we don't play. Staff talk sharp like a quiz on a Monday. Whiteboard wars, yeah, we grade all day. If you